MaRS, and welcome to our launch event today. My name is Salim Teja, and I lead the Venture Services Group here at MaRS. And for those of you who are new to MaRS, to give you a quick overview of who we are and what we do, we are an innovation hub focused right here in downtown Toronto, focused on working with entrepreneurs in the science and technology-based industries, grow high-growth, high-impact companies. We focus on three sectors: health, clean tech, and ICT, and within these sectors we have developed cluster areas of specialization where we see a lot of market momentum and market demand. Our community here at MaRS consists of all of the great entrepreneurs that we work with, lots of corporate partners who engage with us day in, day out to talk about innovation, a lot of great funding partners who fund the startups that we work with and help them get to scale, and then many academic partners who are thinking about how to create the right types of skills and workforce that we need to help fuel the companies that we are helping to build and grow. So over the last several months, we have announced several new clusters, and these are areas of specialization where we see a lot of entrepreneur activity bubbling up that we want to be able to address and work with very specifically. We're focused on clusters where we see really interesting conversations happening between our corporate partners and the startups. And that dialogue to us is really, really interesting and important, and we want to bring a light to those conversations. And we're talking about clusters where there are huge, broader trends that are having impact on our industry, on our economies, on society, and we want to bring a light to that. So over the last several months, we've launched a cluster in the fintech space, our cluster in the consumer and commerce space, and today we'll be launching our new cluster in the work and learning space. And to fill us in a bit more about what that means and what our program is here today, I'd like to introduce Krista Jones, who leads our work and learning cluster, to tell us a bit more about today's agenda. Krista.
Thanks so much, Celine. Wow, thank you all for coming. It's so nice to see a full room and lots of familiar and new faces in the crowd. Work is changing at a pace and scale that has never been seen before. The entire notion of what employment is, what skills are needed, and how technology is being used is being radically remade every day. We have really moved from a company-centric system to a worker-driven one, with the single greatest instrument of change being the current state of technology development and the adoption of that technology in our workplaces. Technology has really been disrupted, or has really disrupted, three of the core workplace elements: the workers themselves, the jobs themselves, and the workplace structures that are required as a result. First, there is a real unprecedented change in the workers themselves. The modern worker, all of us, is a really highly networked mobile native. I remember the days of the digital native. We're well past that. And this person works very differently than the generation of workers that have come before them. These so-called Uberized children of Google are used to working anywhere, anytime. They fully expect that their employers in their workplaces will give them access to continued training as new things come out. And they actually want their workplaces to grant them access to all the new technologies and tools that they use in their personal life. In 2015, it's a big year. It's the first year that we have more millennials in the workforce than any other generation. This generation coming up is speedier than we are. It leaves they love all things digital, they demand flexible work hours, they seek jobs with impact, and they're very incentivized by different things. Secondly, let's look at the jobs. Jobs have really changed. McKinsey analysts estimated that the number of skill sets that are required in the workforce started at 178 in September 2009 and grew to 924 by June 2012. That's a huge change that our corporations, our educational institutions, and the world at large is trying to cope with. Technological advances that are hitting us, like artificial intelligence, big data, robotics, 3D printing, collaborative networks, the Internet of Things. And all of these things are redefining the markets, they're redefining products, they're creating new competitors overnight, they're enabling new ways of reaching customers, they're changing the fundamentals of our manufacturing process, and they're destroying the business models that we all know. And this is happening all at once and at warp speed. And what this is doing is it's creating a need for skills and capabilities, most of which we don't even know what they are yet. And if you combine both of these things, they combine to drive the need for some fundamental shifts in the underlying structures of work. Work systems are just not evolving fast enough to meet the demands of this new workforce or to absorb the impact of this technological advancement that's happening. As an example, I think one of our startups later on is going to talk about this. I read somewhere that by 2020, that 50% of the workforce will be freelance. Freelance has been around for a long time, it's not a new notion, but what is new is the exponential growth in the amount of people and industries that are using freelance labor. People leaders, HR executives, governments, everybody's struggling to deal with these dramatic pressures that they're feeling. And they're trying to create organizational and systemic solutions to navigate this world. They're struggling to source the right worker to perform the right job at the right time. Most of them are turning to innovation and technology-enabled solutions. Toronto in Canada is home to many entrepreneurs who are passionately creating smart, innovative solutions to these problems. Many of these companies you'll hear about tonight. Some others are Exonify, Horizon, Workin, Whirl, Empty Cubicle, Ripen, Synergize, Bitmaker Labs. Some of these you might have heard of, some of these you haven't yet, but all of them you will. All of these are entrepreneurs making big bets on helping all of us enable the workforce and the workplace of the future. Many of you have asked me about this intersection of work and learning. Why do they fit together? EdTech and innovations in learning have emerged globally as a key enabler of the changes needed in the workplace. The pathways from K-12 to work are no longer a straight line. In fact, there's many new lines being drawn. The just-in-time skills acquisition that's being needed and driven by these new skills that are coming up every day is becoming a vital part of many of the workplace solutions that are needed. I see it built into talent acquisition, hiring. I see it in culture and productivity. I see it in HR underlying productivity solutions. I see them being built in across the board. I believe we have a real opportunity to position Canada as a leader in the creation of the workforce of the future. It's for all of these reasons that we're launching this work and learning cluster here tonight. And it will serve both as an acceleration platform for the Canadian startups that want to grow on a global scale, as well as a central place to connect entrepreneurs, investors, business leaders, educators, and all those who are changing the fundamental nature of the work and the supporting and enabling skill development required. With that, I'm extremely excited to start hearing from some of our partners and startups that are here with MaRS to launch this new cluster. Our first panel is a discussion from the partners about the urgent need for innovation in the workplace. We're thrilled to have Dr. David Weiss as the moderator. David is a leading expert on innovation in HR and has written 6 business books in the topic, plus written 50 trade and journal articles about. He's also held the position of Chief Innovation Officer well before innovation was a common word. With him on the panel is James Breed. Where's James? Over there. Who's the Managing Director of Pearson Canada. Pearson has been a very early supporter of MaRS and the EdTech cluster that we have here. I think we're on our 3rd year working with them as a partner. He has overall responsibility for managing the businesses of Pearson Canada in K-12, higher education, professional, clinical assessment, and the French language markets. So I think he gets kind of the space we're in. The company The company has more than 600 employees that are focused on improving people's lives through learning. If you think of one of the industries that has been dramatically impacted by the advancement of technology, we all think of publishing as one of them. So James has the challenge of leading his team through that rapid change that they're undergoing. The final member of the panel is Corey Shaw. Corey is the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition for CIBC. CIBC is another large supporter of innovation in Canada and here at MaRS. And Corey works tirelessly trying to source the right talent for CIBC. And he's really having to compete now with, there was a FinTech event here last night, and there was 500 people dealing with all of the up-and-coming conversations and competitors in the FinTech industry. So he's having to fight for talent. Whereas before in Canada, everybody used to want to work for a bank, and that's kind of what you did. Now there's many other options and places where you can go with your skills. So over to you, David. Come on up, panelists, and we'll get going.
Great, well thank you very much James, Corey, for being here. I'm David. It's a pleasure to be at the launch event of Work and Learning, and we're going to be exploring some exciting discussions around what really drove your organization to actually engage in this innovation journey, and that'll be where I'd like to start. So James, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you have been a part of revolutionizing this textbook world that you're offering to school-age children and university and colleges.
Sure, that'd be terrific. So many of you probably know Pearson as a textbook publisher, and we are. We create content for almost every subject, every course that's being taught in K-12 or higher education in Canada. But what's happening in our space is technology has been a real game changer. We've been able to do things that are different than we have in the past, in that there is an opportunity for content to be deployed in a different way. And that's really what's driving a lot of the change in our organization. The student desire to engage in content different than the printed word.
Great, and Corey, why don't you tell us a little bit about CIBC, an organization we're all familiar with, how that ultimately is being affected significantly by these transformational times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the changing nature of the financial services landscape. You know, we would have all seen the Bitcoins and the Apple in terms of iPay and the opportunity to now compete against technology organizations as a traditional financial institution. So, you know, CIBC is absolutely focused on being an innovator in the banking space, you know, to the extent that we realize that the competitor landscape is broadening. And just as importantly, Krista was mentioning earlier, that the talent pools are also broadening and flattening. What I'm getting at is that, you know, traditionally banks were seen as that stable place where you could have a very long career from the traditional backgrounds. Those would be commerce students, people that have a financial background. Now it's widening and opening up so that you can have a career path in technology or in digital or in marketing or in human resources or talent acquisition. And as you position yourself as that employer of choice, what you want to say is that innovation is in our DNA. And what we're getting at is the opportunity to join an organization that can be agile, flexible, and put products to market and enable people with workforce patterns that allow them to be that support their lifestyle and how they work. Krista mentioned earlier that folks will not necessarily want to work those traditional hours and work different hours and mix work and play a little bit. It's up to organizations like CIBC to enable people with not only the technology and the innovation to be able to do that, but with the latitude to do that in terms of the organizational hierarchy. So it's definitely changing very rapidly, and as we position our employment value proposition, we have to tie it and link it to those values that exist, especially in the millennial workforce, and especially as we now compete against potentially the Googles or the Procter & Gamble's, wide industry comparisons versus just the other banks.
Great. James, you told me that 5 years ago, 95% of your textbooks that you were producing were all textbooks, hard copy. Now it's basically 50-50 digital and text. Phenomenal transformation. Congratulations on that journey, and most of it's apparently post-secondary education. Let me ask you about the impact of all that on the nature of work. Work is the first word I want to explore, then I'll explore learning, which is part of our cluster that we're talking about today. So tell me about how work has changed now that you, in fact, are focusing more on this digital space.
Right, so we have our foot in two paths. We have our print analog business and we have our digital business. As David has just mentioned, half and half is where we are, and it's changing rapidly. It's becoming more and more digital, but we have a workforce and a labor force that are very good at creating content and materials in a print format. So we've had to shift our lens from traditional print to something different, which is the digital. And that means we're looking for different skill sets. Obviously, as you move from one to the other, you need a different type of employee with different skills to bring to bear. But we also have a very large labor force that is really good at what they do in the print space. And they're great at building pedagogical materials and services. So we're working very closely with our HR departments to bring in training and skills to our existing employees. One partnership that we've just undergone is with Ryerson University, where we've worked closely with them to create a course specifically for us, which is all about industrial instructional design. And our employees can go through that program, earn credits towards a degree in instructional design. So we're working very closely with our partners to try to bring in different skills and skill sets.
But now the challenge is actually to design and do instructional design as a way of actually offering your materials, which really didn't exist before when you did textbooks. Is that right?
It's completely different. So when you think about the book, there's 2 pages. You're looking at content, and they're related. So what's on this page is usually related to something that's on the opposite page. Visuals, tables. When you look at devices, smartphones, you have to look at it differently, and how the students will ingest it and learn from that is different. So the way we design our materials and our products has to be different.
So, Corey, in terms of work in CIBC, how has that been transformed in terms of the experience that you'd imagine a worker would have now versus in the past?
That's a great question. To a large degree, financial institutions are sales organizations. So on the front line, in banking centers, in some of our contact centers, we look for digitally savvy salespeople. We look for people that are comfortable with enabling technology to not only allow them to do their jobs better, but to be able to create a better customer experience. Because what we want is customers that are not only wowed by the interaction and the opportunity to engage in a good conversation, being provided advice through the enabling technology, but we also want a workforce that's very comfortable with placing the client in the right channel. So it might be a client that comes in through a banking center where maybe potentially their services are better supported through one of our advice channels. We've just recently built out what we call the Imperial Service Direct, which is the first contact center in Canada where now you can get financial services, financial planning type advice through a digital channel, through a contact center channel. And so it's just being savvy and comfortable with that sale, but using the enabling technology, whether it be an iPad, whether it be a smartphone, and guiding the client to where they want to do their banking.
Also, if you think about how do you transform your workforce to adopt all these things, almost shifting from the work to the learning component of it, that generate that kind of new way of working in this environment?
You know, I think it comes down to giving them the confidence that they have the flexibility to provide the right advice at the right time. And that doesn't mean necessarily working in a banking center. That sometimes being out in the community. You know, if I translate it to my recruiters in talent acquisition, when they go to an event, You know, it's less about the swag and the business cards. It's more about making sure that they're being thoughtful and deliberative about the presentation. So using the enabling technology, making the invites to the event through potentially social media, so that they're opening up and they're amplifying the talent pools, but when they host the event, that they're making it technology friendly, to use a term, not be seen as a fuddy-duddy bank. Because, you know, often you'll go to talent events and you'll see the bank show up in the traditional way, and it's not always the sexiest way to necessarily present your brand.
I mean, both of your organizations, in many respects, are shifting brand, if you think about it. You're a textbook industry, print industry. How do you actually shift your perspective for your customers, for your employees, to make an environment that's a larger organization attractive to new employees? In the banking situation, really trying to change the image as well. So how do you do that, James, where you actually change the image so that you become attractive to employees who might want to work in this space?
Yeah, I think the market's changing so much, so we're really on the cusp of something completely different than most students experienced when they were at university, college, or in high school. And the way that the content is now delivered and deployed is something that I think it's a better student experience. I think that they're more engaged with the materials. We can add a lot of additional content. We can put widgets, embed them into our content now. And because of the engagement and the better student experience, outcomes are better. So we're making a real difference for Canadian students as they work their way through their academic career and taking that forward into their workplace career.
Now, you mentioned that in our previous discussion that post-secondary education really is adopting this, and in part because students are saying, I need this,
right,
and you have to teach me in this kind of format.
Right.
Tell me what do you think about the JK to the grade 12 experience, and that I understand is more text-based. What's going to take it to transform that environment to be more digitally focused?
That's the million-dollar question, absolutely. So we're working with partners in school boards across North America and Canada just to try to get an understanding of what educators, parents, and students are looking for when it comes to digital materials. And the interesting part about K-12 is it's usually not a BYOD type of environment where they bring their own device. So the devices need to be figured out with school boards, the LMS needs to be figured out, the browser, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. But I think that educators, parents are expecting a movement to digital. We're just trying to figure what that looks like, because it is a complicated environment. High school, I think, will move more rapidly than K-12. It's usually one content, one course, less so in elementary school.
You know, it's interesting when you take a look at the banking industry. To actually achieve this, your space is mostly in the recruitment area. Let's focus in on the kind of innovations that you're doing in specifically recruitment and finding talent. It's not only the bank that's transforming, but even the way that you're actually exercising your recruitment function is radically changing. What kinds of things are you doing at this time to change the nature of that kind of work?
You know, I think it really is about what talent pool you're going after. And some talent pools you need to amplify your brand, your opportunities. One example might be we've recently launched what we call the talent community. And it's as simple as on every email signature, there's a link to a talent community, and it allows the recruiter and our acquisition professionals to send content on a regular basis that might be about the financial services industry, might be about a new product that we're launching, not necessarily all about careers at CIBC. It'll tie to that as well. Because one of the things we focus a lot on is that every candidate is a client or a potential client. So you're wanting to give them that good experience. That's more of a broadening and amplifying your talent pool. Another thing that we've done that we focus on is being proactive and targeted and going after those talent pools that wouldn't necessarily traditionally think of CIBC as that employer of choice. An example might be if you're building a team of digital IT domain experts, what you might do is you might say, well, there's 45,000 people at CIBC. So how are you going to use the power of that community, which we know you amplify the networks by so many degrees of separation, and you've got millions of people. So what you do within that is you look at your 45,000 and you say, you use the big data and you target out people that have a background working for digital organization or come from digital networks. Then you reach out to them and you say, who's in your network that would be a good match for this job? So it's not your basic employee referral program. What it's doing is it's looking at talent communities and networks that wouldn't think traditionally about a bank or CIBC, and then you're reaching out to those people, and it just creates a much stronger opportunity for the organization to add bench strength, but at the same time, it makes existing employees feel really good because they've added to the talent of the bank.
Now, you as a managing director are not as involved specifically in the hiring of people, but what kinds of things are you doing that in your space, given that you're offering a totally different kind of model with the digital textbooks that requires a different approach towards finding talent, developing talent, and what do you find within your organization?
We're looking, we look all over. We have a lot of partnerships with MaRS. We reach out to MaRS a lot about where's the next place to go, who should we be looking at, what skill set should we be targeting. They've been extremely helpful on that front. But in terms of our, there's different categories of employees that we have at Pearson. I think in terms of the product development, product creation, we're doing a lot of incubation type of work. So we're looking for people that are used to working in startups. We're looking for people that have, especially in the K-12 space, and people that have started their own business, that they've been in the digital space, they understand pedagogy, and they understand the learner. So we're looking at a very diverse talent pool in our organization at the moment.
And how do they mix with the textbook people? When you get the textbook, the old guard, the new guard talking together, do they actually get along?
Yeah, they get along because there's a common goal. The common goal is the learner. So we put the learner at the center of everything we do at Pearson. So we're looking for those employees. If they don't have that passion, then they won't be a great fit at Pearson.
So no difficulty. They all want to get there eventually.
They all want to get there eventually.
And in your space, you find the same thing, where you get the old guard, new guard, your digitals and your non-digitals. Do they talk to each other?
They really do, and I think about even within talent acquisition and the opportunity to go at talent in a different, unique way. So in talent acquisition, the number one technology was always the phone, right? And it can still be very powerful, but it's what you do before you pick up the phone, right? So what you see is a lot of very savvy millennials that know how to get through into the right talent network, using social media, using the online channels, and then they pick up the phone, right? And what they do is they give themselves a way better opportunity to have that return phone call because they're being smart and proactive. So then you start to see some of the traditional recruiters, people that have been in the industry for a long time, and they start to pick up on that because recruiters are always looking for that return phone call. So I've really seen the fusion of those two behaviors come together, and it's pretty powerful.
It's great. Now let's kind of go to the other side. There must be stuff in there that's saying, well, but really the problem is we're trying to get into this digital space. Our pain points are. What do you answer to that question?
I think it's just the speed that the change is occurring in education. It's slow moving. In fact, education is one of the last bastions of print. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but it is. And I think there's just a momentum that we're pushing through. We're pushing sand uphill in some cases, but there are enough educators, faculty, parents, and students that are looking for something different. But the thing that's really slowing things down for us is just, I think there's just a slow uptake for the transition from print to digital. I think one of the big challenges is just about deployment. It's how do you deploy E in a way that makes sense for students, for faculty, for parents. And in the higher ed space, faculty were used to phoning the bookstore, saying this is going to be the book for, you know, my financial accounting course. Here's the ISBN, order in 100 copies new, 100 copies used, and whatever else. And that's the way it always was. So as you move from that model to print, or to digital, pardon me, it's different. And they're not sure how the students are going to get that content onto their smartphone or onto their tablet. So there's just that's part of the training process that we have to do with our sales force, is how do we move the customer towards digital, because it's very easy to implement once you try it.
And in your case, where's the pain points?
I think the pain points are probably in looking at how we use the enabling technology and the data differently than what we would have done traditionally. And you know, when you work for a large matrixed organization with lots of expertise, you really have to bring people together and explain the imperative that you are doing and create that win-win. You know, that example I gave of going after digital talent. Well, using a database that was not built to do that, but has the information in it. So as you work with your partner who owns that database, you say, you know, here's an imperative that will help us as a shareholder, and why we're not putting the organization at risk to be able to partner to do that. You know, the biggest partnership with talent acquisition these days is in marketing, which is to the extent to say that there's tremendous opportunity to reach talent pools, to reach customer pools together as you go after the talent. And lots of opportunities to do that today. I mean, one of the things that CIBC has in place that's pretty neat is our double credit card. So it's sort of the double coffee with the credit card combined, right? And that's very powerful, right? So if you mix that in with your talent acquisition for certain cohorts, you can actually sign them up as a client, and you can get their business in terms of joining us as an employer of choice as well. So lots of opportunity to use a neat product like that at a recruitment event that you can engage them both ways.
So, you know, many people in this room are entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people who probably are trying to build relationships with more established organizations, such as yours. So let's spend a moment now on what makes a great partnership with a supplier, with someone who is bringing maybe new technology, new innovation to your space that collaborates with you, and maybe what actually is the partnership from hell, right? So what's it look like when it's really a mess? But let's first start off, what makes a great partnership alliance with a young group of entrepreneurs or some other people who are bringing new assets to your business?
Go ahead.
You go, it's okay.
You know, I was going to say that it's really understanding how the technology, how the product or service can work inside a large organization. So it's sometimes having the patience to be able to understand how you align the activities with the results. You know, it's definitely drawing out the ROI side of it, right? So it might be to say, okay, if we're going to turn on some enabling technology, like, for example, video interviewing, well, you would say, well, how does that benefit the organization? Well, you know, the traditional expertise would say that 70% of communication comes through body language versus verbal. And so you say to yourself, okay, well, if you could do 5 video interviews versus 5 traditional over the phone interviews, you're going to get much greater intelligence to be able to turn those into recommendations to the business. And then you start to do the math, and you start to say, well, if CIBC is hiring thousands and thousands of people, then we can actually create more of an efficient recruitment process by that enabling technology. But you've got to turn it into ROI, because the activity is very much, if you're going to get the buy-in, if you're going to move it from pilot phase into business as usual phase, you've got to be able to show that ROI imperative.
James, with you, what makes a really great partnership with someone who's contributing some value here?
Yeah, for us at Pearson, the market is changing so rapidly, it's almost impossible for us to do everything. Building platforms and systems from the ground up, that's just not the way we're going to be going. So we work very closely with other partners and collaborate with partners to add value to the offerings that we have in place, or to expand us into an area that we haven't or we don't have a solution for our customers, whether it's faculty or students or parents or clinicians. We're looking for ways to improve the student experience or the faculty-teacher experience. And there's a lot of technology that's out there that I know can do that. There's a lot of technology that the one piece that's adding great value now is this, and it's simple, it's this text-to-speech. So with a lot of our products now, the students can just highlight what they want to read and it reads to them. So that when they're on the bus or making dinner or whatever, that's how they ingest the content. They ingest it the way they want to. But that's just one innovation or partnership that's happening at Pearson that I think, the sky's the limit for us in terms of learning and our stakeholders. We are trying to find different ways to really improve outcomes and provide a better experience for our clientele.
Well, if you then continue on, James, with the follow-on question. So what kinds of things actually, if you were in a partnership with an entrepreneur is trying to bring some new value to you, what kinds of things actually would you say, that's going to be a turn-off? That's really going to be a deal breaker in terms of building a relationship?
Right. Anything that is not agnostic, does not work across multiple devices, multiple platforms, multiple LMS systems, that's certainly something that we'd have to look at a few times before we talk about that.
So it has to be able to carry across any kind of LMS, any kind of system that people might be using at any given time.
Correct.
Anything else?
I think
That's about it. And from your perspective?
It's a little bit what James said. It has to work within the systems, but sometimes, equally so, it has to work well outside of the systems. So I've seen examples where sometimes it just does not make sense to do system integration, as long as the organization has the right security, has the right call it protocols in place for a large organization like CIBC to be comfortable that if it's sitting outside of our systems and there's data outside of our systems, that the data is secure. Because sometimes the cost of integration just doesn't make it sense to do it. The other thing I would say is that's sort of the back end. If you look at the front end, you've got to, I'll use the term CIBCize it. So you've got to have the flexibility to be able to do that. It doesn't have to be fully customized, because why would you buy that product or service in that sense? Because you're actually buying that expertise, that domain technology. But there has to be enough customization at the front end so that it's brand friendly and so that it can work in terms of what I call the how. The how is the most important thing, because you're not going to get clients to use it, you're not going to get employees to use it unless the how is very simple and straightforward. That's what I'd say.
Well, so let's continue with our final question. Most people who are in the entrepreneurial space are looking for innovations. It may not even be about today's innovation, but they're thinking about what's going to be 2018, 2020, and they're getting ready right now to lead the pack to actually create the opportunities into the future. So where do you see the needs in the future, maybe 2, 3, 4 years out, that might be something that people should be considering to contribute to organizations such as yours? Why don't you start, Corey?
Yeah, I think if I look a little further out, it would truly be about those organizations that make it easier for us to uncover hidden talent pools. We still very much use the traditional show up at post-secondary, the traditional, we have a large applicant tracking system. We very much, go after talent through employee referral programs. It's really uncovering those hidden talent pools that can be an exceptional fit for where the organization is going. So if you think about CIBC, it's a very large Canadian organization. It has the largest footprint across Canada of all the Canadian banks, something that we're very proud of. And if we're going to be reflective of the communities in which we do business, we really have to do a better job of getting at those hidden talent pools. One example we spoke about was President's Choice Financial and the opportunity to join the organization in somewhat of an entry-level role, but then to move on to other opportunities within the organization and because of the pervasive nature of President's Choice Financial, you really have to get to those hidden talent pools, because there are lots of communities where they're not lining up. They're not lining up to join the organization, and how we get at those talent pools.
James, 3 to 5 years out, where do you see it going?
Where do I see the market going, or
Where do you think the needs are going to be? And therefore, what might
Needs
some
for
people
what?
say, I've got to
Okay.
create that opportunity to meet those future needs?
right? So I think the academic market is going to go in a direction of more institutional. There'll be more institutional plays for content. There'll be more institutional plays for digital content being delivered and deployed to students. How that's deployed, I think that will be determined depending on the segment of the market, whether it's K-12 or higher ed. I think it'll be different in both, but that is really where I think learning is going in Canada. There will be a demand to understand how to deploy content and academic assets to students in a way that makes sense. That's the next brave frontier for my industry.
James, Corey, I want to thank you so much for your insights, your thoughts about your journey in transforming two historically very, very established industries into modern, digitized kinds of offerings, and your contribution to leading this space and to sharing these ideas with all the folks in this group. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was very hard for me not to, at least 5 times during that talk, stand up and say, I know a startup that could help with that. So that's kind of what I do. So thank you very much to that panel. I think it's great. We're going to move on and change the topic totally on you. And we're now going to talk to some ventures who have reached success in the marketplace and that are still pivoting and changing and expanding to different markets, and they're going to be talking about what it's like to have some growing pains as you come along. So we've got 3 Made in Canada ventures that are going to come up and talk. Moderating the panel is investor extraordinaire Daniel Class. Daniel's the managing director for Class Capital, and he's been a visionary in the growth investment space. At least to me, he's been a visionary, and I think to all of you, because over half of his portfolio is actually in the work and learning space before there was really a work and learning space. So he's recognized the need and the changes in the industry. Joining Daniel are 3 very different people with 3 very different views of how they're gaining market traction. And the first one is Jeremy Auger. He's the Chief Strategy Officer and one of the co-founders of D2L, now Brightspace by D2L. I always get confused with the actual branding, but I'm trying really hard. D2L is a great example of a Canadian growth venture who's expanding to new markets and new verticals. They've also, as we announced today, have just joined us, and we announced a partnership and helping us launch this whole new cluster and bring their experience as one of the success stories to bear for everybody else. So thank you very much for joining us as a partner and working in this cluster. Next we have Craig Moratz from Cura Talent. Craig has spent many years honing his ability to bring executive level insights and discipline to entrepreneurial ventures. Cura Talent is an interactive video interview tool that helps you assess talent quickly, and they've gained a lot of success in the education market. And Steve Watt is here, so not Jamie, from Clearfit. He's stepping in for Jamie. And Steve is a passionate advocate for data-driven talent acquisition and decision-making. And he's worked at some exciting places like Clearfit, LinkedIn, and Spin Master, all places that have been dealing in very competitive marketplaces looking to build scale. So Daniel and guys, it's all yours.
Thank you, Krista, for making the introduction, but I thought we'd look at this and give the audience some context of who you're selling to and the types of products you're selling, and then we'll walk through kind of what's changing in your industry, and then we'll finish off with just talking about the challenges and the journey how you got there and how you got to where you are today. And I looked at it as though I'm making an investment in the company, so I'll just start firing away and asking you guys questions if that's okay. All right, so why don't we just talk about who in the organization each of you sell to, if you're selling to large enterprises, you're selling to small enterprises, and then who did you get as your initial customers that were willing to adopt your technology? On the side.
Sure. We're selling to line of business leaders. We're head of sales, head of customer support, very specifically focused on the line of business leaders because talent acquisition and talent management is their team, it's their pain, and they're the ones who are ready to move on it. So that's
maybe to share really quickly.
Sure. So Clearfit is a software company in the talent acquisition and talent management space. Think of it as we're on a mission to help get people into the right roles. When you have better data to better understand individuals and better understand roles, and you bring those together, you end up with a vastly better job fit, which means happier people, more productive organizations, and all-around success.
Yeah, so D2L, we're an ed tech company, and our Brightspace platform is really an integrated learning platform. So everything from kind of LMS through to learning analytics. And what we're focused on in terms of segments, we serve both K-12, higher education, and the enterprise market. So really anywhere learning happens.
So for this panel, I think we're going to focus on the LMS, if you're okay with that,
Yes.
on the enterprise side. So you selling to large enterprises, medium-sized versus
Yeah, I mean, we have clients kind of across the gamut in terms of size and kind of subsegments. I think where we find that we have the most success are organizations who really see learning as part of their corporate strategy, where they're trying to transform to learning organizations, and they see technology as a key piece of that strategy. So you'll tend to find that more on the large end in terms of enterprise company sizes. Many times you'll find them with roles like a chief learning officer, but basically it's a core part of what they do.
And how many customers do you share this direction? How many customers do you have in the enterprise space?
I'm not sure the breakdown is. We have about 1,500 customers and about 15 million users using our platform today.
So we sell to higher education, the admissions office. We believe that the fact is the application and the assessment for how students get into higher education hasn't changed in decades, if not 50 plus years. It's grades, it's an essay, sometimes it's an in-person interview. And so what we do for admissions teams is we help them do a video assessment. So I think Corey talked about video interviewing for CIBC and how you get to see body language, a lot of things that you don't see maybe in a phone interview. Well, we're doing that for schools of higher education, so they actually get to assess a competency that is related to their success post-graduation. So right now, a school like Rotman, or previous to us working with Rotman, they would have looked at a GMAT score and an essay that maybe they wrote, maybe their parents helped them, maybe they bought. And so what we do is, it's a real-time asynchronous video that captures a certain competency that the admissions teams can then, using a rubric, assess that applicant. So they're assessing non-cognitive skills.
When you started the business or got involved with the business, did you always sell to the higher education?
Absolutely not. No, we started in HR and quickly realized, and I apologize to the people in HR here, they're horrible to sell to. They're trying to save time and money. Sorry, I know you sell HR, you know the problem. HR wants to save time and money. Admissions teams in higher education are less concerned about saving time and money and more concerned about finding the best and the brightest. And so we like that. It's much more fulfilling to try to help somebody find the future leaders of tomorrow. So we sell in everything from business schools to nursing, law, all of the different segments.
And so when you two, do you sell the LMS? Looking at an enterprise, are you going to the same people to sell the LMS and the talent tools that you sell? Like, who are you selling to specifically? Who are you selling to?
Well, really, we have some of the same issues with HR that obviously you do, in terms of it can often be a very slow sales cycle. Sometimes things just don't get done because the pain isn't real enough. We focus on that VP sales, that VP of service, the person who is leading the team, that's accountable for the results, the person who feels the pain of underperformance, the first person who feels the pain of empty seats in their team, because that's the person who's willing to act to address that pain.
You're not selling to the HR department, you're selling to all different levels of the organization.
Yeah, sometimes HR ends up in the conversation, but that's seldom where it starts and seldom where it ends. It really is about the person who feels the personal pain when their team is not as good as it can be, and that's where we get our sweet spot.
Yeah, so for us, on the education side of things, especially higher ed, typically we're selling to the CIO organization. Many times it'll be a head of learning or director of academic technologies. And what we're finding more and more over the recent years is that there's always been a stakeholder group, kind of an administrative tool that's used by instructors and students and instructional designers. We're seeing more and more kind of the faculty involved because it's kind of an area that's the tool they're starting to use every day. They're very passionate about functionality and usability and things like that. So they're, while it's still, the procurement might fall under kind of a CIO or IT organization, we're seeing heavy involvement with that. When we go to the kind of the enterprise space, it depends. So, you know, if there's a head of learning and development, they're a key stakeholder, obviously. In some cases, we're dealing directly with CEOs who are trying to make kind of a strategic or a cultural shift towards more use of technology and towards a learning culture. But it depends again on scale.
And so, Cher, I think we should really, I'd like to spend a little more time on the challenges you guys have experienced scaling the business, because I've known Clifford for a long time. I'm a really happy customer that I've watched you guys evolve in time. And you made the decision to go into the learning management space after that. When did you get into the LMS space?
About 1999.
And you pivoted completely away from enterprise to focus on education.
I mean, it's still an enterprise sale,
Right.
so it requires the same resource, just a different vertical.
And so, all right, why don't we, before we head there, let's just talk a little bit about trends you're seeing in the HR space, just because I know that's what the audience is interested in. So maybe we can just share some stories about what you're seeing in terms of the direction in the HR space, what you're seeing within organizations, what kind of tools are they looking for, and then the next thing I'd push on if I was investing in a company is, are you selling a solution, or do you have a point solution and a tool, which is something I'd be concerned about? So maybe, Craig, you can start off talking a bit about that, because I look and say, are you selling a point solution, or where does this product, where do the vision of the product go?
Sure. So I think a lot of tech companies start out as a feature. You know, maybe it's a Chrome extension or something like that, and they develop into a product that can become more useful on a weekly basis, and then eventually you want to be a platform. So we've transitioned from a feature to a product, and we're on our way to being a platform, because our product is used not only to assess, but then also build the classroom. So we pull in data from other sources, and we take that data, then the admissions team takes that data, plus the data from the interview, and the interview is both a video assessment and a timed written assessment, and they can then build a classroom. So it takes a lot, you know, to get to know a vertical. In order to be able to go from a feature to a platform, you've got to spend a lot of time with the customers to understand their pain. And a lot of times you'll see people building products without understanding the real pain of the customer. And finally, I think if you only rely on what the customer thinks their pain is, you're going to only build something that they think they need. And so what we've understood in our product team is, even when a customer tells us something that they need, we're more interested in understanding why they need it, so we can build probably a better solution than they're thinking of.
That's a great point, because we see a lot of companies in building, trying to solve a pain point one specific customer has, or the bright shiny object they go after, and they don't look at the product as a scalable product. And we were looking at a company today, we had a board meeting, and it was incredible how this company is a mature company, yet 90% of the customers use 10 or 20% of the features that they've built out. So how do you avoid doing that? Talk a bit about some of the things you've built and kind of what you're building today that customers actually need and use, and same on the element side.
We're on the road. Clearfit's on the road to becoming much more than we once were. We started out as a tactical hiring solution, really helping organizations put the right person into the job at the front door. And our customers have been pulling us to be much more than that. They've been saying to us, now that we have this way of understanding people in a way that we didn't before, now that we can understand drive and recovery from setbacks and leadership and teamwork versus individual work and all these attributes that make people who they are and make people who seemingly may be the same in terms of their resume, their education, their experience, their track record of success. They may seem the same, but they're actually really, really different under the hood. And organizations, as they see that and they realize the power of that for hiring, they're saying, okay, well, now we want more. I mean, it's great that you're helping us hire better, but what about all the people I have here now? I want to better understand them. I want to put the right person in the right job internally. I want to identify my future leaders. I want to understand why people react the way they do to different stimuli. All of this. So our customers have really pulled us into much more talent management as opposed to, or in addition to talent acquisition. And that is a very active scale and build out for us right now. We're bringing new modules to market very, very soon that are going to fully embrace talent management in addition to talent acquisition.
So for us, I mean, we got started in the education space and ultimately shifted into enterprise and corporate learning. And kind of to put it in context, and you asked about trends that we're seeing. One of the things that we see happening over time is the shift of responsibility from what was traditionally the academic institutions to now falling on the shoulders of companies. And what I mean by that is, I think gone are the days where a university graduate comes to you prepackaged with a nice little bow, ready to start on day one, fully productive in a role. The fact is there's a huge skills gap. There's a huge mismatches of skills needed for today's jobs, especially in tech. And a lot of that is a result of just the speed of evolution of the skills needed. You heard Kristen talk earlier about just in a few years, the number of skills that are needed, those change year over year. So the pace is picking up, and the nature of kind of formal education isn't really, doesn't have the agility necessary to train everyone for every job. So I think what we're seeing is we'll see kind of a focus in formal education on more horizontal skill sets, things like problem solving and synthesis of knowledge and becoming a good learner. And then the burden of these specific skill sets will continue to fall on, not just for new graduates, but ongoing in the life of an employee to continue to develop those employees more so than we ever had to in the past. And so, as we shift from education into the corporate market or enterprise, we see a significant growing interest and demand in technology to help scale that need for ongoing development. And so, in terms of what we decide to build, we always fall back to our mission, which is, using technology to help transform the way the world learns. And we focus on, we have a number of what we call mission metrics. And those are things that we want to help improve. And those are things like productivity, better outcomes, higher performance, better engagement, productivity, things like that. So, so when we're making decisions on what we build, if it's not something that will actually impact those mission metrics, then that's where we look to our ecosystem. And we know we won't be, the tool for everyone for everything. So, to your point earlier about platform, that's really where we need to be an open, extensible platform that allows that ecosystem to plug in where, you know, we can either be a hub and spoke model or we can play a key part within that broader ecosystem of functionality.
So Craig, could you share, I mean, a lot of people in the audience, I'm guessing, are earlier stage companies that are growing, trying to find their first customer. Could you give, if you could share just some of the lessons or give some thoughts as to how do you make sure you don't get into that situation where it's really feature creep and you're building everything for one customer that's not really applicable to multiple customers? And then also maybe we can talk a bit about how you found those first innovative or adaptive customers within the organization.
Sure, I'll start with the first one because I think it's easier. You know, I think the idea of customer acquisition cost is something more important in a later stage company. And if early on you're concerned about your customer acquisition cost, I don't think you should be. I think you should still measure it, but the cost to acquire your first customers, whether it's the first 5, the first 10, the first 25, you shouldn't really care. And it should be, even if you're even if you have to go up and down the street knocking on, you know, you're selling something to small businesses, knocking on doors and going into stores, you do whatever you have to get your first customers, and it's probably costs you an incredible amount of money if you actually calculated what they cost. But in regards to, you know, for creating features and feature creep is, I don't know, that's a tough one because you're early stage and you don't know yet what is going to be the important features of your product. So you could have created one part of the product and it's actually going to be the part that you eventually kill. So it's a really tough one. I think you just have to be mindful of monitoring what people are using inside of your product. So there's, you know, you can use products like Intercom, and there's other ones that can tell you, and you can monitor what people are using. So if you've got 5 features in your product and 80% of the people are using, as you said earlier, 10% of the product, sometimes it's okay to kill those other features.
And Intercom is a great, I mean, the challenge, so there's another product called Gainsight that we just spent a lot of time on. There's a bunch of our portfolio companies using it, and they measure everything from the mouse clicks and all that kind of stuff. The problem is, well, one thing is you got to build out your product to really be able to measure how people are using the product, and then 2, you need the data for these software systems to work. So,
yeah. And one of the problems, like with us, for example, we don't have a product that necessarily people are using every single day. They go in waves. So our product team has to think about, okay, if we're going to release a feature, we want to release it at that time of year that people are going to be using it. Otherwise, they release it, and there's no feedback loop, right? And so sometimes you're building a product and you want to time it so you're releasing. The only way you're going to know if a feature of your platform is useful is if people use it. So you've got to make sure you're releasing it if you're a cyclical product at the right time.
And Jeremy, maybe you could share, walk through how you guys decided to get into the enterprise space with the learning management system, and then you can share, I mean, you're earlier into that process and you were obviously in the education space, right? You share some of the challenges you've had entering the space and some of the things you've kind of pivoted along the way to get to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've always had enterprise customers, but they've usually been kind of inbound, and they've pretty much kind of taken what we had. They're willing to kind of deal with a company that was kind of mostly framed around academic and education customers. So it's been the last couple of years where we've just had to put kind of a more proactive product sales and marketing focus on the enterprise space. I think the biggest challenges we face is, in many cases, it's just terminology. You know, when we talk about LMS, for example, in the education space, that's a very clearly demarked side of the business. That is the academic side, that is the teaching and learning side. There's the administrative side, which there's another industry for student information systems, and that's the administrative side, and kind of never the 2 sides have met, except through an integration, which is very typical. When you go into the corporate space, you talk about LMSs. Many times they're thinking about the HR system, and that HR system is in education is the equivalent of the SIS. So, and sometimes they've kind of strapped on a learning module, and that's what, that's the LMS. So, so when we go and we try and use kind of our knowledge from the education industry, sometimes there's actually confusion about what we even do. And so when we kind of frame it as more of a learning environment and a learning system and a kind of an engaging learning system, it is actually very different from systems that traditionally exist today. And I think, if you go into most companies and you ask people if they've ever done an online or a blended course within their company, most people put up their hand. And the next question you ask them is, how many people loved it? Maybe that a great, engaging experience. All the hands go down. And I think that's because the nature of the traditional kind of learning environment in the enterprise space has been one of compliance, not really one of learning and engagement. And so, for us, we're trying to take a bit of a different approach in that we're trying to really drive engaging learning experiences and tying learning outcomes directly to business outcomes. And that's a different approach than administration and compliance. And so we're seeing a lot of success around that frame.
So could you talk a bit about whether your products, and go through each product, whether people actually, are they looking for your product online, or are you actually approaching them and saying, hey, do you need this type of product? For example, with Clickbait, we needed the product from my organization to screen our candidates, but now you're moving in the direction, a little bit of a different direction where people are using it internally. Are you how are you educating your customers in terms of what you do, and are they out there looking for a solution like this?
Yeah, it is an entirely different challenge because, as you said, when you need to hire, it's a clearly enunciated immediate need, and you will go looking for help to get that done, be it a recruiting agency, be it software, be it job boards. It's a lot of different things you do, but you need something and you need it now. It's entirely different where we're going into a world of a far larger sale, a far more strategic engagement with our customers. They're often not aware that there's the kind of pain there that there really is. And so we really then move into the engaging the market, educating the market. We've had to completely reorient our marketing operation away from high velocity transactional selling to lead generation and lead nurturing. And we've had to build out an enterprise sales team to go out and take these leads and engage these prospects and turn them into customers. And it's a much longer process. In many ways, it's a more difficult process, but it's also ultimately a far more gratifying process because at the end of the day, what we end up with is true partnership customers, much larger engagements, much deeper engagements, and we believe there'll be much longer term engagements. When you're in that high velocity tactical space, where you're only addressing immediate pains, you can come into a customer very quickly, but you can be on the way out of that customer just as quickly. It's an entirely different business when you are going deeper, as we are now.
And I would imagine when managers, people are looking for a system.
I think it's a bit of a mix. A lot of companies will either look to refresh their technology or look for something new or next gen or do a market scan and find us. I think what's more interesting is the types of uses that we're seeing that are non-traditional. So we're seeing, customers, for example, our typical customer will use this for everything from onboarding to sales enablement to building collaboration internally to all of the kind of standard learning and professional development things that you do. But what we're seeing is some interesting cases where large companies will be in a situation. We have a large global consulting firm who over the next 10 years expects to have to hire about 300,000 employees. Problem is those 300,000 employees don't exist with the right skills in the market, and they don't expect them to exist over the next 10 years. So what they're trying to do using our technology is actually trying to build and create those employees by offering effectively public education on the skills that they're going to require for their candidate pool over that next decade. So they're offering kind of massive open online courses or MOOCs where anyone can kind of go sign up, and then so they're not only developing skills in their marketplace for future job candidates, but they're also using then the performance within those courses as a recruitment tool to kind of pick the best and the brightest from the batch. So we're seeing a lot of kind of inbound and proactive kind of reaching out around our traditional markets, but we're seeing some interesting kind of new areas of development for our technology.
And so, we're not spending money on AdWords. Schools of higher ed aren't going in and typing in video interviewing or video assessments. It's something new to them. So our job, from a marketing side, is to create awareness and engagement, and I don't want to say necessarily create the demand, but create the interest. So any of our inbound is generally from a referral. So we have a land and expand strategy. So there's 100,000 degree granting programs in North America, and that's who we sell to, is at the program or school level. So, an example is at U of T, we don't sell the institution because that is a long sales cycle and deployment is very challenging. So we sell to Rotman MBA, we sell to the School of Pharmacy, we sell to engineering. And so quickly, the way we expand is internal referrals. That's mostly how we're getting our most inexpensive customer acquisition costs come from those referrals.
We go back to one of your earlier comments. Why did you find it? I mean, this product seems so obvious for an integration, for example, Perfect, right, or for an enterprise. Walk through again why it didn't. Your first experience so far didn't work with enterprises.
Sure, I mean it works, but it's also there's 12 other companies doing it, and they're fighting over. So probably to bid on video interviewing in AdWords is going to be cost prohibitive. So there's a whole bunch of people trying to solve the problem for HR, and I wanted to solve the problem for a different buyer that nobody else was solving it for. So it's not that it doesn't work for HR. Like, we still have business corporate clients, but from a startup, startups fail because they don't focus. So if you're trying to sell enterprise, you're trying to create a self-serve SaaS model, you're trying to service restaurants and retailers, you don't know your value proposition. So we fundamentally believe that the way that schools of higher education assess applicants is broken, and it's not at all related with how the job market assesses. So we want to help schools assess the applicants, so when they graduate, they're selecting students that have a better opportunity of being selected by their eventual employer. So I just felt it was a bigger problem.
That is a big approach, and we've seen with a lot of our portfolio companies when they're taking that approach in specific verticals within the GRC space or the LMS space, whatever it is, they've had a lot more success owning specific verticals.
Yeah.
Does the audience have any questions before I just continue rambling on? Does anyone have questions for these guys?
One question. I work for a company that provides technology for digital transformation. So the way companies work, sell and market is changing, so we provide an education. How are you enabling those companies to do that education to use your technology right now? Like, do you face a challenge when the solution is not understood by the buyer or even by the workforce that's still in the software that they use?
That question for me?
Well, maybe.
Maybe you can repeat the.
Sounds like, yeah, maybe I can. So it sounds
So
like.
did you face a problem with companies that your buyers from not understanding the solution by yourself and why it's important? And how do you enable those companies to learn about the challenge that they're facing and bring it forward?
So the question is about whether customers are prepared to use the technology and how they get over that hurdle.
From the point of the buyer up down to implementing the
Right. So typically our buyers are fairly well informed. They're, especially in the education space, where we're their sixth LMS, and they're just, upgrading to a better solution. I think when you if you're dealing with, say, the corporate enterprise market, companies that haven't necessarily implemented before, It's probably the same in education. There's the buyer who knows what they're looking for because they've kind of scanned the market. Many times they're not even the user of the technology. They're just making sure the requirements are met and then rolling it out from a project management perspective. The younger generation, they're like, whatever, it's a web app, we can use this. There's kind of a narrow demographic that you tend to have challenges with in education. That's called faculty. That's where, we do training, right? So we train either directly or we do train the trainer models. In some cases, we roll out training within the solution. So you're actually using the solution to learn the solution, kind of meta training. But there's always a need for that. And I think, when we think about online learning or blended learning, it's always kind of a trifecta of content and the systems or technology and development or PD or training. And the three have to be there, for sure.
Yes, my question is anyone from you international, or I guess I only focus on these Canadian customers? And what is your understanding of Canada's position in terms of providing the educational service to the world, as compared to, for example, UK and US?
I didn't hear exactly the last part, but when our product is used, well, we have applicants from 120 different countries applying to schools in probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 from Germany to Japan. And the bulk of our customers are in the US, but we've got customers around the world.
We do about 30% of our business in Canada, and the rest is international. So we have offices globally.
We're wholly focused on North America, with about 90% of our customers in the US and the remainder in Canada.
Is your question along the lines of what challenges have you experienced selling in Canada versus the US versus internationally?
Yeah, and what is your understanding of the positions Canada should take in terms of providing the educational services globally compared to folks in the US and UK, for example? What is the advantages or companies for Canada?
So I can talk about. I was in India a few weeks ago, and I was with another company who's Canadian as well, and their sole business is taking North American, primarily Canadian education to India. So I think there's huge demand for that. I think Canada is looked at as a leader in terms of our educational system and our graduates, whether that's in the U.S. recruiting all of our top talent away from us, which we need to slow down and keep here, or as you go overseas. I think a Canadian education system and related technology companies are looked at too as leaders. So we see that. I think it's actually a kind of a badge of honor to be headquartered in Canada when we do travel around the world, and that actually helps us in the sales cycle.
All right, Chris is telling me time's up, so I'm sure we'll have time. You guys you'll be around a little bit afterwards, and you can discuss it further. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm sure we could have gone on for a long time. That was great. One of the things I think that was really important in this panel was that whole conversation. It was kind of interesting to hear the comparison to the first panel, which was talking about it from the perspective of the employers and what they're working on, and then this panel talking about how they're trying to find their product market fit. And what you heard all of them talk about was trying to find that, and you especially heard Craig talk about it when he was talking about Kira Talent, trying to find where the problem is what we call a neck wound, a bleeding neck wound, as opposed to a scratch on your finger. Because you want something where they actually need to solve it now, as opposed to, oh yeah, I'll put a Band-Aid and deal with it later. So thanks again, guys. I think that was great. The final section, which is going to go really rapidly, and then we're going to get you all to having some more drinks and food and networking a bit, is called the Emerging Ideas Pitches. So we've kind of gone down from the corporates and the established to the scaling companies, and now we're going to hear 5 3-minute pitches from high potential entrepreneurs who are creating kind of the seed stage companies, and each of them will have 3 minutes to tell you their story. We're going to roll right through them all, so they're going to be quick and punchy. The first one is Sarah Prevet, who's a successful entrepreneur who is now turned educator.
Okay, so 3 minutes is not enough time, and I really have to appeal to you and come between you and booze. So my name is Sarah Prevette. I am an entrepreneur turned investor turned entrepreneur again. Don't hold it against me. I have 3 minutes to talk to you about the tragic state of our education system in Canada. And so what I'd like to start with is for you to reflect back on your own educational experience. I'm not going to do the math and tell you how old I am or do the math on how old you are, but surely you remember what it was like to be in school. People didn't ask you about what your passion was. People didn't give you the chance to experiment, to test, to innovate. You weren't taught that entrepreneurship is a viable career path. You weren't encouraged to go out, take big risks, and take on big, hairy, audacious goals. The problem is that our education system was built for a reality that we no longer face. If you think about how rapidly things are changing right now, just in the day-to-day, month-to-month, from a technology aspect, you've got to think about the fact that our education system hasn't changed in 100 years is bloody terrifying. So without intervention, we're going to be failing yet another generation. And unfortunately, with the colliding factors of climate change, finite resources, all sorts of scarcity and scary problems, our children need to be effective solution designers. They need to be confident in their ability to affect change, and they need to have a process that they can use to distill these big, holy crap problems into solvable businesses. And so what we're talking about at FBS is how do we get the education system to be refocused on innovation? How do we make creativity at the same level as literacy or numeracy? And how do we equip kids with the skill sets and tools that unfortunately currently we have to learn bleeding in the trenches as startup founders? How do we give them their 10,000 hours to even reach high school? What we're looking at is giving kids a chance to experiment. How do you create schools as sandboxes? How do we enable them through a repeatable process of ideation, validation, and rapid prototyping? The same tools, kits, and methods that we use in leading product development can be used in solving real problems. It can be used in devising strategy, it can be used in devising process. So our innovation-focused curriculum has been run with hundreds of children. They gain entrepreneurship experience while they're designing real solutions to real problems that they're passionate about. Our approach is to expose them to game-changing innovations, just like the things that you see around MaRS. That's why we're housed here. We try and get them to focus on the leading entrepreneurs, get big changing ideas, and understand that they can actually have an impact. Each student develops these skills, the ones that happen to be highly marketable, and the ones that all of the big companies are currently trying to hire for, and a system isn't churning out. You need to be confident in yourself to be able to affect change. Currently, we're looking for exceptional educators across Canada, across the US, and across Europe. If you know somebody who is an exceptionally passionate educator from grade 4 all the way up to higher ed, please, 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 please have them email us. We're also very keen to talk to people with deep pockets. We're trying to build a compelling approach and change education so that we are encouraging our youth to lead in innovation in Canada and around the world. Thank you.
This is where they put my beautiful slides up. So I usually start these presentations off with a story about a student named Michael, but I see quite a few familiar faces tonight, and I'm gonna guess you've heard the Michael story. If you haven't, find me after, I'm happy to tell the story. But tonight I wanna tell a story about a different student. So a few years ago, I'm speaking at this high school in Kansas for a group of these high school students, and I finished the presentation, I'm getting ready to go home, and this young girl comes and chases me down in the hallway. She says, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. I've got a huge problem. And I say, what's your problem? She said, I'm a straight A student. And I kind of made a face, and she said, no, hear me out. I'm president of student council. And I'm looking at her a little bit more strangely now, and she says, it gets even worse. I'm captain of the volleyball team. And I'm like, do you guys speak a different language down here in Kansas? Because from where I'm from, those are all very great things. She said, no, Ryan, the problem is, I want to be a baker. And I'm like, that's fantastic. You're in grade 12. You know exactly what you want to do. You're levels ahead of all of your classmates. And she said, no, Ryan, I went to my guidance counselor. And I told my guidance counselor that I want to be a baker, and she looked at me in my face and she said, what a waste. She said, what a waste of talent. You know, I think that as educators, they do one thing really well, and that's understand education. But for things that don't fall within education, things become a little bit more cloudy. So I built, my name is Brian, and I'm the founder of a company called Raise Your Flag, and we built Raise Your Flag for the students that I just told you about, and the student named Michael, who you guys haven't met yet, but you will if you come and ask me after this presentation. The 45% of young people who do not pursue traditional post-secondary education when they leave high school. They go to work. And for those students, things are very unclear. To put that number in perspective, next 4 years, we're going to see 390,000 students in Ontario alone leave high school and enter the workforce. In the US, we're going to see about over 1 million students per year. There's over 100 million working Americans without degrees. This is a crazy thing that nobody is talking about. And it's not the problem that they don't have a degree. This is the problem. The problem is that if someone is going to university, it makes a ton of sense what they need to do. They declare a major, and then their path is laid out for them. They're going to read these books, they're going to learn these things, they're going to take these tests. But for the students who are going for work, there's nothing for them, right? And I want to take a step back in history. I've got like 40 seconds, so I'm going to make this really quickly. Before Google Maps existed, this is how people found out where they were going to eat for the night. They opened up the yellow pages, and they called these numbers, and they phoned people, and they said, hey, where are you located? Are you open tonight? Do you guys take reservations? How many star reviews do you guys have? How do I get there? Is there parking? Then Google Maps came along, and it crushed all of that, because it tells you where you are, where you're trying to go, all the different routes, how many stars, how to contact, if they're open. Students who are not pursuing traditional post-secondary education, they try to make their decisions based on this. A job board. Does it look familiar? Yes, it's because job boards are like the yellow pages. Raise Your Flag, the company that I founded, is Google Maps for careers that don't require a degree. We show a young person exactly where they are, we help them figure out where they want to go, we show them all the paths, how to get there, how long it will take, and exactly what they need to do to get there. So now, when they're making a decision about work, we can bundle that together and say, here's how you get to where you want to go. So if we have a young person that says they want to be the customer service manager of a bank, Corey, you're probably still in the room, come and find me afterwards. We build a bundle for that company, and we say, this is exactly how we get them from where they are to where they want to be. If you want to hear that story about Michael, come and find me after. I'm happy to tell the story. This is how you reach me. You can also reach me by just finding this beautiful beard somewhere out there and tapping me on the shoulder. Thank you, guys.
Hi everyone, thanks for welcoming me. I'm from TAC. TAC is a community of tech professionals. We've got both candidates and employers. And we may be run by human beings, but we're powered by artificial intelligence. And the amazing thing about that is that it can help you find and connect and be connected to the people who are most valuable to you as a professional. They can help you find a job. We built TAC because the biggest problem facing the economy today is talent liquidity. It is too hard to move amazing people around. It takes too much work to find a new job. If you're an employer or a hiring officer, you literally cannot know too many good people. So we built a technology to say, well, we'll help you meet a whole bunch more really good people. When I came into this company, our goal was very simple. We were going to help two amazing people. Their names are Brandon and Angelina. Because I'm really nerdy, I'm going to call them Brangelina. Brangelina were trying to hire a new digital marketer. And they knew a bunch of great digital marketers already, but unfortunately, the people that they wanted to hire, they couldn't actually find within their own network, so they turned to TAC. And TAC said, all right, I can help you. I'm going to look through your social networks, your professional networks, I'm going to find people within our community, and I'm going to try and introduce you to them. And started to look for a very special kind of person, someone with a big network, someone who could, help because they cared about tech marketing, maybe someone who had a great set of tech marketers they already knew. And it was going to introduce that person straight to Brangelina. Was going to be a wonderful story. In the end, it found 5 people. 2 of them were close friends of Brangelina's already. The other 3 were members from the network. One of them was named Christine. And when Christine was notified by TAC that someone was looking for someone with a tech marketing skill set, she was sitting down to brunch with her friend. And her friend has just graduated from Queen's Commerce. She was looking for a tech marketing role. Christine said to her, look, I just got this notification. These guys are looking for someone. You want me to make an introduction? Christine offered the introduction over to Brangelina. Brangelina took a look at her friend's profile and said, yeah, that's a great introduction, no problem. Brangelina's problem before had been that they didn't know enough digital marketers that they could just ask out of their own network. Now they knew one more. The hiring process for tech startups can cost up to $300 a day in lost productivity and resources. If you expand that market in real spend between here and the KW Tech Corridor, that can be as high as $440 million annually. And all Brandon and Angelina need is to meet one more great digital marketer. We launched our TAC community back in August, and it was 4 months, and we've already reached 100,000 people on behalf of 200 tech startups in this culture. And we've done that with one goal. How do you meet the next great person in your community? We're building a revolutionary new technology for one reason. It's because we believe that the way to do that is with artificial intelligence. Something that can help you meet these great people before you do it. Our first phase is really simple. Who do you want to connect to? How do you connect to them today, and how can we help you make it easier? But that's the first stage. Starting next year, the TAC artificial intelligence is going to wake up. And it's going to start to make candidate referrals on its own, just like Christine did for Brangelina. Imagine a professional recruiter that had access to 100,000 profiles in its Rolodex. Millions of profiles in its Rolodex. Imagine a professional recruiter that had already placed millions of roles before. Imagine one that had a tireless work ethic. I'm actually here today to ask you for a bit of help. TAC is hosted at www.tac-app.com, and it succeeds or fails on one thing: on whether or not you are willing to connect and to be connected to a new community of users. That's what we do every day. My name is Jonathan. We are TAC.
Hi everyone, I'm Christine and I'm the co-founder of Plum. So we're looking towards a world where turnover is reduced and people enjoy going to work and employee engagement is at an all-time high. The reality is closer than you think with behavioral-based platforms like Plum. So what do we know? We know that employees who are better matched to their role are more engaged, more content, and less likely to become a turnover statistic. We also know that 89% of turnover is actually due to behavior failure, and only 11% skill set. Behavior is the main cause of turnover because your preferences dictate how you will perform on the job. So inherently, some people love routine. Some have to have a dynamic work environment. Some people love to work from home, and others die without social involvement. It's very important to identify these things before you bring somebody in for an interview. Because along with behavior, intelligence is the #1 predictor of workplace performance. Yet it's extraordinarily difficult to identify in the traditional hiring process. Where you went to school doesn't dictate how smart you are, and what Fortune 500 you worked for doesn't tell about your personal work ethic. In an interview, a hiring manager decides within 90 seconds whether they like you or not, and gut instinct takes over. Normally, they're judging you on appearance, charisma, and confidence, and not necessarily what's right for the role. So Plum is changing the hiring space by using its data-driven approach to help job seekers and employers find their right match. First, job seekers take a 25-minute survey identifying who they are, and they only have to take it once per year. Then, employers take a 5-minute survey per role, and they identify their unique needs and company culture. A match score is generated in an online dating-style platform, and an instant shortlist is created. We work both inside of applicant tracking systems and also independently for smaller companies. Plum is innovating the assessment space because we offer an affordable, subscription-based, front-of-the-funnel hiring solution that revolves around matching, reducing the bias, and increasing the ability to find potential. Our methodology is considered unfakeable because we don't ask questions that have the right answer, only things that are based in preference, and we cover the full spectrum of behavior as well as 2 types of intelligence, problem solving and social intelligence. And it's working. So far this year, we've increased our sales by 163%. We have 150 clients in 6 continents, and so far a 93% customer retention rate. In a recent poll, we asked our customers if they would rehire their plum hires, and 100% has said yes. So the structure of the workforce is changing, and by 2020, 40% of the workforce, it's 40, will be freelance. The average lifespan of a career will be 3 years, and 50% of the workforce will be millennial. The idea of searching for people based on potential is going to be critical, not education, not experience. We have to move from a subjective hiring process to an objective-based data matching solution. And we're excited to do that with the future workforce to build a happy and productive economy by matching employers to job seekers. Thank you.
Last but not least, sorry everybody. Okay, so I know I am the one between you and alcohol, so hopefully you'll all stay here with me, and I've got my eyes on you, don't leave. My name is Angie Kramer, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Jobless. It sounds like jobless, I know, that's the joke. It's freelance relationship management. The irony of having a freelancer and a full-time job in the same place. Because everybody in this room is well aware of the fact that the future of work is changing. The way we work together has changed. There are no promises of full-time jobs anymore. You don't know for sure that you're going to have a pension. You don't know for sure that you're going to have a job in a year from now, and that's scary. The truth is, the people that rule this situation, the people that own it, are the skills, the freelancers. Freelancers used to be a bad word. Now they are the skill sets that we need. Now we've said 2020 twice. Actually, the new data shows us that 2017, it's actually coming at us a lot faster. 50% of the American workforce, that's 60 million people, will be freelance. We did a survey last August and asked Canadians, because as Canadians, I love us all, but we're always a little bit behind. 40% of Canadians wanted to go freelance in the next 5 years because they felt their skill sets were strong enough. And the reason behind this is, it's driven by the fact that anything that you want to create requires 10 times the number of skill sets that it did a couple years ago. These skill sets didn't even exist last year. So who knows what's going to exist next year? 10 times. And now, my funny cat. Sorry, man, I had a good punctuation moment and then the button didn't work. Okay. So how are we going to remain competitive or be competitive? If you're a large corporation, how are you going to be flexible, flex up and down and meet the demands? That's why we built Jobless. Jobless is a freelance relationship management platform. We're not about undercutting freelancers. This is your personal, private freelance database. We save you money by removing the recruiter completely. It's a SaaS subscription, so you don't have to worry about buyout fees. We save you time because you actually build a database just like a recruiter would, and you're immediately matched to talent. You advance plan. I know it's a strange idea, but you can book people in months in advance. And there's job security for the freelancers. You get top talent because they know that they're booked ahead of time. And the best part is the flexible structure of having a database of talent allows you to scale up and scale down. So quickly showing you how it works. You can meet people by posting a job in the public talent pool. If you like all of them or one of them, you add them to your private database. These are your talented people. We call it the little black book. You can invite people in that you already know. And now you can see who's available, post jobs to them, and invite them privately and directly to jobs. If nobody's available, or you need additional talent, some skill set that didn't exist yesterday, you post a job to the public calendar and begin accepting in new applicants. So from this, very disjointed, disconnected, freelancers on the outside, if you lost a client, you had to lay people off, to this, and I know you can't see it very clearly, but it's flexible ecosystems. Thought leaders, having teams of freelancers underneath them to support them and help them out. And ecosystems and entrepreneurs or startups, it doesn't matter what size your company is. Build the team that's going to help support you with the right thinking. That's what a freelancer is. So how is your company going to remain competitive or be competitive in the next couple of years? You've got to think about what your flexible company model is. Come on, laugh. There you go. All right. Thank you very much.
With the jokes, because I know you guys have all been sitting in your seats for a long time, and I want to thank you for that. Trying to get through all of the information we wanted to convey tonight was difficult. I'm going to take 2 minutes more of your time to do a few thank yous, if you can just bear with me. Thanks to everybody, the presenters, the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs great. Didn't they just bring the energy? This is a big part of what we do at MaRS, is foster connectivity in the ecosystem with events like this. This launch is only the beginning of what we're trying to do. We hope that you all want to remain engaged. Please connect with us. Please go sign up, follow our newsletter, come to our events. The MaRS Work and Learning Cluster operates much like our other clusters, as Salim explained at the beginning. It provides industry-specific startup advice, and that's really important. We try to build a community that understands where this field is going, bringing in the buyers as well as the investors, as well as the knowledgeable mentors. And it provides connections to customers, media, investors, and talent, as well as convening a very diverse set of stakeholders for thought-provoking and business-enabling events. Before I close, I want to introduce you to the team that is behind this work. Sorry, the slide before that. I want to make a special mention to Aaron. Is Aaron here somewhere still? Aaron, he's been a colleague, a mentor, and a very close friend of mine as for the last 3 years as we built the EdTech and morphed it into this work and learning cluster. We would not be here doing this without Aaron, so I just want to say thank you. He hangs his hat in a Legal X cluster that was launched recently, but I refuse to really let him go, so he's still part of the work and learning team. Joanne, sitting here in the front row, she is the head of HR for and talent. I think it's talent, the title here at MaRS. And what she does is she keeps me focused really on what are the true issues that employers are working on, and she makes sure that we keep it really real in dealing with the problems that exist. Robin and Alex are really the real backbone, without whom no work really gets done. Thanks to all of this group, as well as the rest of the tech practice team, the support you get with this group and the insights you pull on. We talk about that use of different skills. It's a real melting pot of skills that we really actually use each other. And thanks to the rest of MaRS, to the AV team, great job tonight, to our comms team, and to the event team that did a lot of great work. So I really want to close by thanking all of our partners, without whom our work would not be complete. Today, MaRS and D2L announced their partnership. Welcome to the family. And we're so looking forward to working with you. Pearson Canada and CIBC, we truly appreciate the work you've done with us over the years and look forward to continue working with you. Class Capital, Cura Talent, and Clearfit, you are key members of this cluster. You're leading and growing and showing the way for a lot of the startups coming behind you, so thank you. And finally, thanks to all of you for joining us. Please stay in touch, and now let's network and have a drink, because I can have a drink.